The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Call to order the May 5th, 2026 Local Government Commission meeting. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here both in person and virtually. Let me turn it over to Cindy Aiken to call the roll.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel for the division. We'll start with Bill Toole, who is designee for Secretary Marshall today.
Present.
Thank you. And Auditor Bolick,
Present.
participating virtually. Secretary Wooten.
Present.
Thank you. Also a virtual Mr. Brown.
Present.
Present in the room is Ms. Hoffman.
Here.
Thank you. Virtual today, Mr. Hughes.
Present.
In the room. Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Virtual, Mr. Stith.
Here.
Live and in person.
I was gonna say, I am here.
Treasurer
I was
Bronson.
getting ready to check.
All right. No absence today. Very good. Also in attendance, staff for the division, or for the commission, Denise Canada, Secretary of the Local Government Commission, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management, Kendra Boyle, Director of Fiscal Management, Laura Rowe, Policy and Compliance Director, MJ and Lindy are friends helping out with AV today. A few housekeeping items. Let's see. The meeting is being recorded, will be made available to the public pursuant to the Department of State Treasurer's recording of public meetings policy. We ask that everyone who's speaking today, please identify yourself before you speak. If you are participating virtually, please try to mute yourself when you're not speaking. The agenda is posted on the website www.nctreasurer.gov at the LGC page. If there are any changes to the agenda, we will announce, that will be announced by the chair during the meeting. We will take votes by roll call. Without objection, members, your motions and seconds will be considered as yes votes unless you wish to change that during the roll call. To our visitors and participants, the microphones in the ceiling are very sensitive, so if you need to have a private conversation, please feel free to quietly exit to the lobby. And every month, I remind myself to try not to rustle my papers because that even comes across on the recording and it's can be distracting. I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Cindy. Everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the flag of North Carolina. Oh, moved it. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of North Carolina and the pledge to the old North State, love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you. Members, let's take a moment to review the conflict of interest. Please take a moment to review the agenda. Commission members are reminded of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any member have an actual or potential conflict of interest with respect to any matter on the agenda? All right, hearing none. Next up, approval of the minutes from the April 1st, 2026 meeting. Looking for a motion and then we can discuss anything.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Second from Mr. Stith. Any questions or discussion about the minutes from last month's meeting? All right, seeing none online either. Cindy, will you call the roll?
Yes. April 1st minutes, move approval Hughes, second Stith. Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Auditor Bolick.
Aye.
Secretary Wooten.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Hoffman.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Treasurer Briner.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thanks so much. Let's turn to attachment A, which is the consent agenda. It's items Asheville that go all the way down through Rocky Mount. Jennifer has one item to explain on the consent agenda, as do I, and then we'll see if any members have any questions about consent items. Jennifer.
One other thing
Okay.
to announce. So on the Nags Head items, the final maturity changed from May 1st, 2031 to June 1st, 2031 because of their closing. The second item is the refundings for Charlotte, both the airport and the water sewer. If you notice, the not to exceed amount is quite different than the sources and uses. It should be noted that the not to exceed amount is the total bonds outstanding. So at the time that the numbers were run, the smaller numbers were only the items and bonds that were showing savings. So part of this approval is that they would recognize savings. So since the numbers run a couple of weeks ago, we've had some changes in the market and more of those maturities are saving money. So I did want to point that out, but the not to exceed amount is the correct amount. And the last thing that I did want to cover is just a general discussion on the tenders. The tenders are only going to cover the water and sewer refunding. So not the airport as noted. But in general, a municipal bond tender, and this is the first one from a local government in the state of North Carolina, is when the entity in this situation, City of Charlotte, water and sewer, will want to buy back bonds on its own bonds early. So the steps process that they will take, they would offer an announcement on which bonds they want to buy back. So some or all of the maturities that they deem that they would like to do in this water and sewer refunding. The investor has, it's optional. They can either accept or decline the offer that the city is making. The offers are then submitted, and then the city has a chance to decide whether they're going to accept those offers or not. And then they settle, and the other part of the transaction is done in a refunding matter, which is on the agenda as well. So the City of Charlotte is looking to refinance to lower interest rates and reduce their overall debt. And the investors, if they accept these, the tender option, they want cash now, and the price is attractive. So again, tender is voluntary, and investors are not required to sell bonds.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Members, when I talked to several of you about the items on the agenda, some of you asked questions about the tenders and said, I should probably know how this works. So I want to point out what Jennifer said. This is the very first tender for a local government in North Carolina. So none of you should have known how it works. That's completely fine. And that's why we wanted to provide an additional explanation on that item. I'd like to call your attention to page A61 in the consent agenda, which is a miscellaneous action item for the city of Rocky Mount. You know that we have Rocky Mount on the agenda later this afternoon to talk about the status of their financial recovery. This specific item comes back to something we discussed last week, which is efforts by Jennifer's staff to get some cash flow relief for Rocky Mount on their outstanding debt. In particular, these loans are through the SRF, the State Revolving Fund. And the debt team worked with DEQ, who's been a good partner for us in our work. And DEQ has granted an extension on these 4 loans that are described right here. So as it shows, 2 of these are 0 interest rate, 2 of these are at 2%, but this is part of the efforts of the staff and of the city of Rocky Mount and DEQ to give a little bit of cash flow savings in the short term to Rocky Mount while they get the finances stabilized. Any questions about any other item on the consent agenda going through Rocky Mount? Yes, on
Yeah.
Auditor Bullock.
Yes. So I have some questions, and also we brought this up at the last LGC meeting, so it is really impressive that we can work with DEQ, because I know the treasurer has worked, and myself worked with DEQ with a smaller municipality in North Carolina. So I'm glad to see that we have that cooperation. But I have some questions. Page A17, the City of Charlotte's issuance of bonds. related to their airport. They have two separate bond issuances related to their airport. This one is the one I have questions about both, but I also have questions on A17. Which is, I believe it's the $175 million issuance. And if the representatives of the city of Charlotte are there, I know the airport itself is actually owned by the city of Charlotte. It is not an independent authority. It appears it's unclear as to exactly what this money is going to be for. It says it's necessary and expedient to improve, but when you look at the details, it allows Charlotte to accept bids on various projects. But it sort of intimates that it's for studies and for certain other things. That I don't see a lot of concrete, and I don't see a lot of asphalt, and I don't see a lot of steel and construction in this particular bond issuance. And so I'm wanting to hear from the city on this, and also wanting to hear from the city generally on this bond issuance on page A17, as well as the one on page A7. The bonds issued on page A7 of the consent agenda deal directly with runway improvements and additional runways, and all that's fine. I'm clear on the fact that it is airport revenue that's going to backstop and pay these bonds. But I'm also interested in the long-term strategic plan, because it would seem to me that the viability and size of the Charlotte Douglas Airport is largely dependent upon its relationship with American Airlines. And so I'd like to hear from the city with respect to their strategic long-term vision for this airport and the relationship with American Airlines and how that looks moving forward.
Thanks so much, Auditor Bullock. We do have the treasurer from the city of Charlotte in the room, Matt Hested, if you want to.
Thank you, Denise, and just the CFO and finance director for previously was the treasurer, former treasurer, but appreciate it and appreciate the questions, Auditor Bullock. Happy to sort of walk through a little bit, maybe high level, and then sort of dive into any specific questions that you may have as well. So in general, we have a fairly large capital improvement plan at the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, as we are a very large hub and the second largest hub for American Airlines specifically. We currently have a 10-year airline use agreement that we are currently working on an extension of with American Airlines and all of our signatory partners. We are in the last year of that, so we are currently actively in that negotiation. If in the event that we are not able to maintain that by the June 30th deadline, all material terms would continue forward and giving us time to expand that relationship. I do think that, one of the things that we're seeing, because the Charlotte area is growing so significantly, while we maintain a very strong hub system, the amount of O&D traffic with customers who are starting or ending their trips in Charlotte continue to grow very significantly, as we continue to see some really strong growth that, historically had been at a, maybe 75-25%. Now we're over 30, over a third of our traffic is starting or stopping in Charlotte Douglas. So a couple of the big projects that we have right now, we are doing the fourth parallel runway, and I believe that it's one of the only, if not the only, new runway being built in the air transit system right now. So that is really going to help, transit across the entire country. Once that actually comes online, one of the projects that's in the bond anticipation notes that we're asking to be approved is actually for us to rehab one of our existing runways that's about 30 years old. So we actually have to do a 10-inch deep mill and repavement of that. So that's one of the really big projects as a part of the $175 million project that we're looking to get approval for. And then that also allows us to do some studies and other things, some of our back of house bag handling for customers that are either connecting or ending their stop in Charlotte, as well as the FIS, which is our international receiving area for customers that need to come through Customs and Border Patrol through the immigration process, to make sure that we have that. As again, we continue to be a very big city with international traffic growing in the area. That's going to make sure that we have the right technology and staff to make sure we properly screen passengers that are coming into not just the city, but the country through the city of Charlotte, to make sure we have proper controls for that.
Are you confident that this is going to work out to really benefit not only the state of North Carolina, but the Charlotte metro area in terms of the airport expansion?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I'm not sure if it made it in time for the agenda, but Fitch, as a part of their rating outlook, actually have a positive outlook on the Charlotte Douglas International Airport bonds. So they continue to see really strong both performance currently and where these capital improvements are going to go for the airport to continue its strong performance and make sure that we're positioned for the long-term growth of the city, the region, and the entire state, and even into South Carolina as we straddle kind of the border there a little bit with passengers coming from our air service area.
Yeah, and I'd like you to sort of comment on the general borrowing in general in the city of Charlotte. I just want to point out, we've got $500+ million in water bonds that's going to be backed by revenue from the water services. We've got these bonds being backed by the success of the Charlotte Airport, and you're issuing $650 million in bonds on special obligation bonds for a Bank of America stadium. If you do that back of the house napkin sort of calculation, that's about $1.5 billion in borrowing the city of Charlotte is undertaking. So I'd like you to speak to the strategic financial plan for keeping track of these dollars and keeping track of the finances in-house.
Sure, absolutely. Appreciate the question. And, one of the things just, at a high level to sort of take a step back, in March, when we brought our most recent general obligation bond to market, we were reaffirmed AAA by all three rating agencies. So I think that's a really important thing to note, that we've done that now for the 40th year in a row, with Moody's in particular. And so each of our credit entities, whether it's the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, water, sewer, stormwater, or hospitality funds, have their own financial plan, or debt model, as we sometimes refer to them, to make sure that we maintain all of our metrics for all of them, whether that's for the airport, for example. We want to make sure we're maintaining the lowest cost per paying passenger, because that's what gives us a competitive advantage at the Charlotte Douglas Airport. We want to make sure that we maintain a sufficient level of liquidity, or days cash on hand. So we have a management target of about 800 days cash on hand. We're over 1,000 days cash on hand right now for the airport, to make sure that we can weather things, whether it's from a pandemic like COVID, or where we're seeing some of the recent international conflicts with gas prices and oil and all those things, to make sure that there is never going to be a interruption of service at the airport. So Charlotte Water has the same financial plan. It's a 30 to 50 year plan. Obviously, kind of the 5 years is what we know for sure. That's in our budget book. 10 years is what we feel pretty good about, but we're planning out 20 and 30 years to make sure that we have appropriate revenues that are coming in, and capital plans as far as maintaining both new projects that may need to come on, but making sure that we're always investing in the current state of affairs to make sure that we're keeping a solid foundation for all of our facilities. And then we also have a separate financial plan for all of our general obligation for affordable housing, our public facilities, our streets and neighborhoods. So we have separate debt models and financial plans for all of them. We work with a number of consultants and our independent registered municipal advisor to make sure that we're doing all of those with a view on sound financial management with our rating agencies, our city council, with the LGC in mind, making sure that we always talk about some of those plans when we're working through our document reviews before we go to market, working with the staff here at the LGC to make sure that we're able to run those through, and that everyone feels comfortable that we have the solid financial backing to make due on our obligations.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just want to point out, that's a tremendous amount of borrowing.
Yes.
It's a tremendous amount of debt. And at some point, the city of Charlotte's going to reach its credit card limit.
Certainly understand, and that's where we had the financial plans in place to make sure that we're always managing to those. We keep very active on discussions with both our council on what we feel like we can afford from an operation point of view, and actually being able to deliver projects and not sort of borrow for things that we're not ready to put into the ground. Working with the credit rating agencies to make sure that they understand what our long-term plan is, and one of the things that I think Charlotte and the state as a whole is really sort of managing is right now we have tremendous growth across the state, but Charlotte, we're seeing about 157 people move to the area every day. So that's requiring a fair amount of investment right now to make sure that we're providing public housing, or affordable housing for people to go, ways to get to and from jobs and grocery stores and all those critical infrastructures, as well as making sure that we maintain, we're the 14th largest city, but we have the 13th largest water sewer utility in the country. So it's really important to make sure that everyone can, as our water director says, if you can't get, water to a development, you can't build, you can't increase the economic activity of the state or the region. And they always say, if you got to wash, brush, and flush, and you got to make sure that you're able to do those things every day. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to maintain. And we're seeing what happens in jurisdictions across the country that don't invest in some of those things and let those fall behind. Once you fall behind, you can't catch up. So that's why we're trying to be really cognizant of making smart investments with all of our capital financings, but making sure that we're keeping up with both demand and maintaining our infrastructure.
I appreciate it. Thanks. If anybody, that's all the questions I have. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Any other questions from the commission on Charlotte or any other items on the consent?
I do have questions on another item.
Auditor Bullock.
Yeah, A27. Related to Johnston County.
Yes.
It's a little unclear to me what's backstopping the limited obligation bonds of $134.5 million. Typically, when we see school bonds and construction for schools, those are general obligation bonds that are approved by the voters. And this is $135 million plus school that doesn't have the approval of the voters at the ballot box. And so if someone from Johnston County could help explain that rationale and what the backstop on those dollars is. For example, we know the $650 million that I referenced for renovations to Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte is going to be funded through tourism dollars, occupancy tax, meals tax. When you have water, it's going to be backed by revenue. I'd like to know what is backing these limited obligation bonds, and I'd also like to hear whether the county commission's sort of approval process on this prior to bringing it to the LGC.
Thanks, Auditor Bullock. I believe that we have the Deputy County Manager and Finance Director from Johnston County on the line, as well as the Deputy Finance Directors. Let me turn it over first to Jennifer Wimmer to answer some of the questions, and then we'll see if we can unmute Chad McLam, Tyson Rayford, or Kathy Kyle to add additional information. Jennifer.
So Auditor Bullock, you're correct that most of the schools do come through general obligation bonds, but for individual projects like this one, or if there has not been a general obligation bond done, the counties come to us with limited obligation bonds, and that's what this is. This is a one project, and $135 million for a high school is what we're seeing across the state for the cost on that. But it is secured by a deed of trust on the school itself. So it is not backed by the full faith and credit of the county, such as GEO bonds are. But for these, it is backed by a deed of trust.
Thanks so much.
We have Kathy Kyle online, and she's unmuted. If she'd like to unmute herself to speak.
Great. Kathy Kyle, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Hi, Kathy, are you there?
Yours is still being muted.
It looks like you're still muted, Kathy. You'll need to unmute yourself from your end to be able to talk.
Okay, this is actually Martha Laster. I'm sitting here with our county manager, Rick Hester, and the two deputy finance directors, Kathy Howell and Tyson Radford. I would also work part-time with the finance office, but we have had school bond referendums in 2022 and 2024. And this project was actually pulled out of one of those referendums because it was not at the point where it was ready to be included. And this project is unique in that we're going to be building a high school on the same piece of property as the existing school, just a separate area of the property. And it will also involve subsequent demolition of the existing buildings, at least part of them. So yes, normally we do have most of our school borrowings through general obligation bonds.
What was the process of approving? Was this a county commissioner vote? And if so, what was the vote?
Yes, sir, Alderman Bullock. This is Rick Hester, county manager, and the Board of Commissioners did vote on that unanimously in working closely with the Board of Education.
Is this just backed by your revenue? I understand there is a surplus in revenue in Johnston County. Currently, you have a fund balance of over 200 million. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So why not pay for it with cash?
I think our philosophy over the years has been, because of our bond rating, we have AAA bond rating on our GOs now, and then AAA plus on these other type borrowings, is to take advantage of those interest rates that we have and pay for them that way. We do pay for a lot of things annually in our budget process that might otherwise be borrowed, but on the smaller amounts. But generally speaking, we do that because we feel like in our modeling that our revenues take care of those debt obligations.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be frank with you. I from a policy and I'm not going to try to substitute my own personal view for the policies that the commissioners make in Johnston County. But from a policy standpoint, I think the general public typically expects these school projects to be funded through a general obligation bond that carries the full faith and credit of the county. And so that's why I tagged this in my research prior to the meeting as something I wanted to pull out and ask questions about, because, I knew that there had been a 2022 school bond referendum. And so it just seemed a little odd to me. I know Johnston County, I think, is now the second quickest growing county in the state of North Carolina, maybe behind Brunswick County. And so I certainly don't want to substitute my judgment for the political leadership in Johnston County, but just wanted to point out that, you got to make sure you make the payments, because you get a turn in the economy, and that's a little different. And you don't have a backstop that is necessarily tied to a specific revenue stream other than taxes. And I haven't seen in the history of Johnston County lately where commissioners want to raise taxes. So that's basically what you're left with. So I just wanted to point that out. I know I'm pointing out what you already know, but it just was something that I wanted to ask questions about. So I appreciate your answer on that.
Thank you. And we respect your questions, sir. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Manager Hester and Johnson County team. Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to move the item.
Second.
All right, Mr. Brown, Mr. Stitt. Cindy, would you call the roll?
Okay, hearing no further discussion, consent agenda attachment A starts with the City of Asheville, runs through the miscellaneous item for Rocky Mount. Motion Brown, second Stitt. Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Thank you. Auditor Bullock.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Wooten.
Aye.
Ms. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Treasurer Reiner.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thanks so much, Cindy. I'll turn it over to Jennifer to explain two non-action items, just for your information. No vote needed.
These two entities, again, we want to keep the commission up to date on the refundings that are standalone, come with no other transactions, and they are only for savings. Cabarrus County sold March 26th and had a net present value savings of 1.7 million and percentage of 4.655%. And the city of Winston-Salem had their sale on April 1st and their net present value savings of 3.98 million, and they had a 5.22% savings. So again, no action items. We're just trying to keep you informed that resulted from the resolution earlier last year.
Thanks, Jennifer. Move on to attachment B, UAL units. We have 2 units, as you saw in your packet. There's Hartford County and then 2 items for Lylesville. We do have members from both of these units on the line if you have any questions. I'll turn it over to Jennifer to present the debt and then to Kendra to talk about the financial concern.
The first item for Hartford County is the enterprise lease of sheriff's vehicles. So it's $121,582. Again, these what's called UAL units have different requirements. They were in legislation to pull them out separately, specifically targeting vehicles to be reported in action for an action for the local government commission. Again, this is for the sheriff's department vehicle leases, and I'll turn it over to Kendra.
Sure. For Hertford County, I just wanted to point out, you have your write-up. They have had significant staff turnover in the last 5 years. They had 2 finance officers, 3 county managers that made internal control compliance become an issue for this unit. They have been able to get themselves caught up. They have submitted their fiscal year 2025 audit on time. Our coach team reports that they are current on their bank reconciliations, that they have also responded to all FPICs that were identified in their fiscal year 25 report. And our team does not foresee any issues with their ability to service this debt. And then for Lylesville, they have appeared on the unit assistance list due to the internal control deficiencies. But they have submitted all their outstanding audits, responded to all their FPICs. They participated in the accounting instruction mentorship program by the North Carolina League of Municipalities. And they have a new third-party bookkeeper. That was part of the issue that they experienced in prior fiscal years is that the loss of that third-party bookkeeping services. And our coach team has worked with them very closely and has made sure that they are making measurable progress and does not foresee any issues with being able to service this debt related to public safety. So those are the items that I wanted to make sure that you all heard about and noticed before making your decision.
Thanks so much. Members, any question about either of these items? Any
Maybe out of
concerns?
curiosity, I'm struck by the significantly higher interest rate Hertford County has than Lylesville. Both are on the UAL, both are leasing vehicles, but it's 1.5% higher. Is that typical?
So with the leases, they're going through enterprise. One of the Lylesville's transaction is it's a red leg, so rural economic development loan and grant program. So it is getting lower interest rates since it's coming from the electric co-op.
That's the 0.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the other one is the Civic Federal Credit Union, which is more similar to the one in Hertford County, but again, it's the enterprise they set their rates. So
To call attention to something that Kendra said, I don't want it to get overlooked. The town of Lylesville has submitted 3 audits since May 2025. So we sit up here and we talk about units that are behind and how it's hard to get caught up, and it is hard to get caught up. And that certainly, as you saw from Kinder's description, there may be other issues to address, but 3 audits since May 2025 is certainly something that is notable. So good job by the town on getting those audits in. Members looking for a motion and a second.
Motion to approve, either.
Second.
Mr. Stith, Mr. Hughes, any other discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Are we voting on these 2 units together or separately?
It's up to the pleasure of the body.
My motion was
For both.
together.
Hertford and Lyles?
Yeah, well, that was the intent of my motion.
Okay, thank you.
No, thanks for clarifying.
All right, now I missed the second.
Mr. Hughes.
Mr. Hughes, thank you. All right. Commission is voting on Hertford County and 2 Lylesville matters together. Stith motion, Hughes second. Mr. Tool.
Yes.
Auditor Bowley.
Aye.
Secretary Wooten.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Hoffman. That is a yes. Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you. And Treasurer Briner.
Aye.
Thank you all. Motion carries. All approved.
Thanks so much. Cindy, thanks for keeping us straight.
You betcha.
Moving on to attachment C, the FPIC units. We will do these one at a time. Let's start with Lucama. I'll hand it over to Jennifer and then to Ken.
So the town of Lucama is coming for approval for a $905,000 state revolving loan. And it is to replace aged deteriorating water lines. And it is a 0% interest rate from DEQ for 20 years.
So what I want to make sure along the lines of what Denise was talking about with units being able to catch up, Lucama is one of those units that at one point was 4 years behind, and they have gotten caught up. They have got caught up 21, 22, 23, 24, and submitted their 2025 on time. So our coach team reports that they have brought all their financial records up to date, including their bank reconciliations and all their other required submitting reports to us, which can be pretty extensive. Even if you're not on the UAL, there are a number of reports that have to come into us on an annual basis. They have engaged a third-party accountants and implemented a lot of procedures that have rectified some of their issues in the past. They have even submitted their fiscal year 27 budget to our staff to review already, which is huge because there are many other units that have not even been able to even started on that process. So our coach team believes that there's no issues with them being able to service this debt and will continue to make the progress that they have.
Thanks so much.
So with the proceeds of this loan, they will fix, I think, the final FPIC. So they won't have any after this, hopefully.
We'll see. Yeah, we're hoping that's what we're aiming for.
All right.
I might ask,
Mr. Toll.
to what do you attribute the success of Lylesville and Lucama?
It has to do with getting the right team in with them, having a finance officer. In some of these units that have caught up, the town themselves have invested in those finance officers going to certification courses, and then also the mix of getting a third-party accountant who can prepare the financial statements on a timely basis, as well as an auditor who is able to dedicate the time to that unit in the manner in which we need for them to meet deadlines. So it's a combination of things.
Infrastructure and will?
Yeah. Prioritization.
Thank you.
And Lucama's on the line if we want to unmute them.
I'm happy with this answer. Thank
All
you.
right, sure. Thank you so much. Any other? Yep, sorry.
Make a motion to the Lucama item.
Second.
Mr. Brown, second from Mr. Stith. Any other discussion? All right, Cindy, will you call the roll?
Okay. Town of Lucama is borrowing. Brown, Stith. Mr. Tool.
Aye.
Auditor Bolick,
Aye.
Secretary Wooten,
Aye.
Ms. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
and Treasurer Briner.
Aye.
Thank you all. Motion carries.
Thanks so much. Turning to the town of Wallace, I'll ask Jennifer and then Kendra.
Sure, this borrowing is for the town of Wallace for $224,000 for public vehicles. And to reimburse, it is also a red leg loan. One difference is this is a current loan to reimburse the town for making the cash upfront payment. The other loans in Lylesville that fell within that were compliance. The coach team member and the town found those while going through some of the reports. And so we wanted to make sure that they were valid contracts. This is a current contract that they would be then getting reimbursed for. So it is for County Electric Membership Corporation providing the loan at 0% for 5 years. I'll turn it over to Kendra.
So the town of Wallace is, as Jennifer mentioned, is a UAL unit. They were on the UAL because their fiscal year 2024 audit report was not able to be submitted to us until December of 2025. So 19 months past their fiscal year end. That is attributed to the fact that over the course of fiscal year 2024, they had 4 finance officers. So that creates a real challenge in being able to get all your financial transactions completed and ready for audit. They have not submitted their 2025 yet to us, but they have, because they got 24 in, now they're on track to be able to move through their 25 quickly. It's expected to come in summer of 2026, so just in a few months. Their finance officer is attending the School of Government's finance officer class, and they also went through a software conversion in fiscal year 2024. So again, part of the perfect storm that we hear over and over again at units that have issues. They are current on their bank reconciliations and all the other reporting that they have to do. They have included this debt service in their current year budget, and they have it, are incorporating it into their 2027. The coach team has no issues believing that this debt service is going to be taken care of by the unit. So that's the information I wanted to make sure you had. And again, as Jennifer said, this is for the purchase of public safety vehicles to reimburse themselves for that purchase.
Great, thank you. For a motion and a second, and discussion.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks,
Second.
Mr. Brown. Mr. Sith, any questions about the town of Wallace? Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Cindy?
Town of Wallace borrowing, Brown and Smith, Mr. Tool,
Yes.
Auditor Bolick,
Aye.
Secretary Wooten,
Aye.
Ms. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Treasurer Briner.
Aye.
Thank you. So carries.
Thanks, Cindy. If the retirement system folks want to come on up, the next item on the agenda is an information item for you only. There's no vote. Ask Sam Watts, the Director of the Retirement Systems, to talk to you briefly today about units that are behind in submitting their contributions to the retirement system. We sit in here every month and we talk about units that are behind on their audits, but one thing that I want the commission to recognize is that when units are behind in their financial management, there are many more implications than just being behind on the audit. And the more I talk to other state agencies or other divisions of this department, we just hear again and again the wide-reaching implications of units that are not up to date on their finances. So I think with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Sam Watts. He's going to talk to you a little bit about units that are behind and what happens as a result. Now, I do want to make it clear to you that this is not the majority of units by any stretch of the imagination. This is a few very small units, but as you continue over the next few years to grapple with units that are behind, what is the future of some of these units? There are wide-reaching impacts. So, Sam, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Denise. Our team, the Retirement System, always enjoys working with our colleagues in the state and local government division. And we always, we've always been struck by the overlap when we have a unit in trouble. With the retirement system, they tend to have other troubles as well. So it's like a mutual early warning system to us. And we know what each other's trouble units are. And right now, so I'm going to give you the scope of the problem and then talk about the implications, and then we'll go back and look more into details on that. And I've got members of my team here to answer any questions. So if there's a question you have, if it has an answer, we've got it for you with the crew behind me, combined with me. We've got 7 units that are more than 3 months behind right now. One of those is in a very, very serious problem, and that we've already declared them inactive in the retirement system. And if they go on for another 6 months, they're going to incur a withdrawal liability, and we have to take legal action against them. I've got 3 units that are very small relative for number of employees, and we're working with them on getting their reports up to date with us. And normally we see in those units, the most common thread there is they have staff turnover or other issues related to getting the data to us, because in those units, they submit their data to us through our retirement website. And then I've got 3 units, 2 of them of fairly significant size, that are having difficulty implementing a new payroll vendor. One of those was large enough that we held up production of the data files we used to produce the state's ACFR this year until we could get that unit to report December to us, which they were able to do on Thursday of last week. Normally we would have had that a month ago, or had the data prepared, ready to go. So that's a serious concern when we've got large units that are large enough to throw off the accounting reports, and would have required, had we not waited on that, a footnote on every borrowing in the state next year related to an Elders participating unit, saying that the liability for the retirement system was estimated. So we managed to hold off on that. But why is this important, and what are the implications of late reporting to the retirement system? Well, first of all, we're a mature retirement system, which means that our pension fund is a revenue source to us. Our first dollars in each month are the employer contributions, and those are also the first dollars out for pension checks. And so if we don't have as much coming in from employer contributions as we expect, then we have to take a bigger draw on the pension fund, which costs the pension fund money in earnings, in gains that we would not have had. That's a big one. And then the financial reporting impact, I just referenced that. We're talking about the large units that have not reported to us. We're under the GASB standards, we're a cost-sharing multiple employer pension plan, which means we're all in one bucket together in the most simple of terms. So if we don't have all the information in hand, we can't develop the correct liabilities, and we can't have important estimates and reports that go to the financial markets. Then there are a number of operational impacts that impact members and the units directly. If a unit is delayed, the accuracy of the benefit calculations for the employees is at risk if they retire, become disabled, or die, or otherwise terminate employment, because we don't know what their benefit level was, or what their retirement service credit was at the point of measurement. There's also significant risk because of that of benefits being overpaid, underpaid, or delayed. There's further risk of errors in the data, because the further you get in time from when the event occurred, the more likely you are to make a mistake or to not know what happened. So the longer we go out, did the person really work there? Did they have enough hours? What was their actual pay rate? Data can get lost if you wait too long to report it to us. Current or former employees who wish to purchase service in one of the service purchase provisions in the retirement system are unable to do so while the unit is late because we don't know what the value of their service is because their data has not been reported to us. A retiree who is returned to work under the return to work provisions, which are strictly regulated under federal law, could be incurring very large overpayments because we don't know if they've exceeded their earnable allowances. And we're not able to work with them or give them any early warning that, hey, you need to slow down here. You're about to create a significant problem for yourself. And then just the basic, how do people make employment or retirement decisions if they call us and we say, I'm sorry, we don't know that you've been employed for the last 4 months. We had a significant issue with a school system. Again, not one in the bucket we're talking about today over the last couple of years. And so they ended up with being so behind in retirement contributions that the teachers decided to stage an employment protest and were waving signs in the carpool line. Hey, our school system hasn't reported. And you can imagine the media around that was rather interesting for the school system management, and I don't want to see that for a local government. Now, onto the specific units that are behind. So the one that has not reported to us since June of last year for their 2 employees is the Mount Olive Housing Authority. Last week at the retirement board meeting, we declared them an inactive employer. And so they have roughly another 6 months to catch up to us, or they'll incur withdrawal liability. They will owe the state probably 2 to 3 times payroll is a typical withdrawal. Total payroll.
It depends, but that's a common range.
Roughly. To withdraw involuntarily, and they will no longer have the benefit of being in the system, and they can't rejoin for a long time. Our 3 that are have smaller issues: town of Wilkesboro ABC Board, the town of Teachie, and the town of Peachland. They've got 3, 4, and 3 employees respectively. If you have questions specifically about those, Courtney Carr from Payroll Services can answer those questions. And then our 3 bigger problems, these haven't reported since January now: the city of Fayetteville, the town of Hope Mills, and Davidson County. Fayetteville was the one I referenced that we held up on producing the data file for the state ACFR on, because they have more than 1,500 employees and could have thrown off the liability for the entire system. They've now reported December to us, but they had to do that and correct all the errors in the file manually because they're still not able to do it with their new vendor, which that took 2 weeks of labor for their entire team to pull that off. And now they're still 3 months behind. Town of Hope Mills and Davidson County, similar issues with implementing a payroll vendor. We're constantly reminding units that it would be, it's wise to test your file with the retirement system before you accept going live with a new payroll vendor. Because once you go live, you're going to start incurring these problems with us. Well, these problems also carry financial implications for the local unit. The late fee is $25 or 1% of the total contributions, 1% of payroll per month. For a larger unit, this can be a significant amount of money. If you work with us ahead of time and you tell us that there is going to be a problem, we're able to cancel those invoices. If a unit simply just misses a reporting deadline, reports are due fifth business day of the month. If you simply dismiss one and not tell us, we can waive one of those every 5 years. If there's good reason, after you use your first waiver in the 5 years, we can't waive them anymore. But again, if you tell us ahead of time, you're working with us, we're able to provide some grace for that. We're not able to provide waivers for return to work penalties. So there's, as I mentioned, potentially employee receiving penalties for violating return to work laws. Well, the employer also has a penalty of $25 or 10% of the compensation paid to return to work retirees for failure to report them within 90 days. So everyone on my list of the more serious problems are already incurring those penalties for their return to work retirees, which potentially increases their cost of labor for having those folks. With that, I think I should pause for questions, and I'll defer some of those to my team if I need to.
And thanks so much. Before we get to member questions, I will tell you, you mentioned the Mount Olive Housing Authority is being significantly behind. I will tell you, they also have not submitted an audit since the 22 audit, which came in about 2 years ago. So there are, again, you're behind in one place, you're behind in many places. And at a certain point, what is the future of a unit in this condition? So thanks so much. Mr. Toole.
Sam, thank you for this. It's helpful. One of the things that comes to mind after hearing you speak and Kendra is that there is a theme that reflects at least some notable handful of these units, which is they're doing software changeovers and and the changeovers are not going smoothly. That's not surprising. Even when you know how to do that kind of changeover, there's always going to be a problem. But if you don't have expertise, which many units I don't think do, the likelihood of friction is even greater. So I'm now coming to the thought that just as we have been investing at LGC and elsewhere in developing what I call the infrastructure for the auditors and some of this financial staff, maybe we need to also be looking into ways to providing consulting services so that, I don't know how we do it, but so that we can at least reduce that kind of friction, because it is avoidable if people know to look for it. But candidly, I don't think, you haven't gone through it, you don't know enough to test it before you go. You just think you slip. I'm going to push a button and flip a switch. No, makes me hate software. But I think that that's something that collectively with the league, with the LGC, with the retirement system, maybe this is something we need to collectively put our heads together and help our unit avoid that problem. Some other things we can't help them with. This one, I think, is foreseeable, something we can reduce. You will never eliminate it. But in my own work, I've been genuinely surprised by other kinds of units that don't understand the basics of how to contract with these vendors for like liquidated damages if you don't perform. I mean, really, I would consider fundamentals, but they're not prepared for this. Something I'd like to at least consider so that we can help avoid this kind of problem in the future.
If every unit, if I may, put a requirement in an RFP for payroll services vendors that had to have a successful test with the retirement system before going live, you wouldn't have this issue.
You would reduce it, yeah, for sure. And this is a recurring theme now.
That's right.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate your report.
Other members, any questions, comments?
Denise, this is Tracy. I did raise my hand.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Johnson.
That's okay. That's okay. I can't tell that I really raised it either. So, but
Yes.
My question is, I thought I heard the mention of Gatsby. And my question is this one of the Gatsby requirements that makes this a new issue for units?
I don't think it's related. No, although Sam, do you have any?
So the GASB requirements, the changeover that had the most impact on this was probably around 2011 or 12 or so.
Oh, okay.
Some of the more stringent employer reporting requirements. And we successfully implemented that and were able to develop the liability sharing procedures, which our actuaries developed the liability, and the state and local government finance division staff provide that information to the local units for their financial statements. And but it is not, there's nothing new about it. It's just that we are constantly getting better at it.
Thanks.
Okay. From what I have noticed, there's usually a new one every year, just about. So I didn't know if this was one of those, but thank you.
Very much.
You might
Thanks,
elaborate
Commissioner
on the
Thompson.
implications for the employees of these units about service accrual.
I mean, if you wish to retire and your unit is behind, your retirement benefit is not going to be correct until the unit catches up. There's a trailing wages, and often retirement benefits are adjusted for several months after the person retires. But for the school system, they got almost a year behind. They had employees that simply couldn't afford to retire because they didn't know what their benefit was going to be. It is they can't purchase service appropriately if they want to purchase service over and above. Of course, let's say if they had military service time that they wanted to purchase before they retire, they couldn't successfully do that, and they can't do it after they retire. They have to do it before they retire. There are, they're going to have a significant risk of being underpaid, overpaid, or just general inaccuracy in their benefits. It's important that we get it right the first time.
So we've had this issue, and I think as we've become alerted to more and more employees who are subject to those potential issues, we wanted to raise it up to make sure that those employees are aware of what their employers are potentially doing.
I know there's a significant amount of time from the retirement system staff and calling out to these units, reaching out to these units. We have a member of Kendra's staff that works directly with the retirement system on, again, there is a lot of outreach to these units. So it's certainly not for a lack of knowledge on behalf of the local unit. So it's a problem.
Can I add one other thing that I did forget to mention? Another thing that's really important is for units to keep their contacts with the retirement system up to date. Payroll teams turn over quite a bit in local governments. So I think it's important to have more senior members of a government's team listed as one of the contacts for the retirement system to provide some additional continuity. And so we do push that and encourage it. We don't always get compliance on that. That is just another one thing we come up with that would be helpful to keep folks up to date.
Keeping contact information up to date for units is also a problem with the SLG staff, especially in the smaller units. You heard Kendra say 4 finance officers in a year. Every time we need to reach a finance officer, we may not have the right information. So it goes across both divisions. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Your team as well. Town of Littleton staff are here if you want to come on up. Thank you so much for coming. So Members, as you know, we've asked the town to return this month and give an update on the progress over the last month, progress of submitting the fiscal year 21 audit. I believe you have some news for the commission on the 21 audit, and just give us some updates about your efforts to hire a finance officer.
Thank you. You all played a tremendous part in our efforts. I took over accepting the unfilled term of mayor. I knew there was an audit situation, let's call it, and worked with the finance director. And throughout the entire process, communication was just key, and the tax season. We faced those two hurdles that we just had an extremely difficult time. Tax hurdles we could deal with, but unfortunately, the people we were dealing with were bound by those constraints. During this month that we have had, we have been far more aggressive in our approach in communication, cautious but aggressive and brief. And your intervention in calling us has made a difference. And in spite of all that it involves, I appreciate your support. The fact that you said, you can do it, come back and tell us what you did, or we're going to come in and find a way to help you. You gave us that extra push, and that made a difference. And I thank you for that. Several meetings, addressed it 3 different ways. Briefly, you have a synopsis of all our efforts. First effort was obviously budget orientated. Joe Durham was extraordinarily helpful in having us look at our budget a different way through different eyes. Year after year, you look at the same areas, and he was able to give us another set of eyes. It was a good experience, extraordinarily helpful in that situation. He had reviewed our budget, came in, and he was, we wanted at this time was a way to be able to finance the position of a full-time finance officer for the town. And he helped us. He helped us find a way to finance both the audits and the position of the finance director. We interviewed 10 applicants, 4 came out quite outstanding. Out of those 4, we came up with one that we are very hopeful will join us. In fact, tomorrow, Clyde Johnson, our finance commissioner, is going to be meeting with her to discuss what we are able to offer. Highly qualified, and you should have some information on that in front of you. Funny, the audit was also a large part. We are moving forward on the budget. We are continuing to work with it. Small town, we have a very limited budget. The other issue addressed several meetings we've had regarding the combination, regionalization, I guess is the new word that's being used, of our water sewer with Halifax County. 3 meetings addressed that issue. First, one of the 3 was a meeting with Halifax County. It was represented by their public works director, both of our attorneys, the 2 of us, and the county manager. And we met in Halifax County, and the attorneys are still working through the process of formalizing an agreement. It was noted at the meeting, as information was presented, that the grant and funding that we receive from the state, the money is on track. The project itself at the sewer plant is scheduled to be completed on time or before the February due date. So by the end of the month of February, the project will be completed. Weather has been kind to us in spite of the ice storm. It was noted at that meeting that the county is looking at acquiring the town of Littleton in the regionalization project and taking it on in stages. The first stage will be the sewer. sewer will precede the water. And obviously that's because that has already moved forward towards completion. That was good information for us to have at that time. We are continuing operating our plant, our water sewer plant operators continuing to take classes and upgrade a certification. Another meeting that was held included Roanoke Rapids Sanitary District, the COG, Halifax County Public Works, the McDavid Engineering. And that meeting involved the mapping of our water lines. 120 Water, funded by DEQ, came in and they mapped our entire water line system. And there is a color-coded packet that you will see it in your packet, shows the actual lines that were identified. In a very old, small town, it was evident we had a lot of water lines that needed to be upgraded. Suggestion was actually made at the close of this meeting after reviewing the lines, what kind of lines were they, where were they, was that grant money be used to take on the two worst pump stations. They are in the worst condition of our 10 pump station that Halifax, so those needed to be addressed. The remaining funds would be to remove old water lines. The first to be removed, they suggested, would be asbestos concrete, and those are identified by color. That asbestos concrete was chosen for two reasons. One, because it's probably it most impacts on the quality of water of all the lines that were listed, different types, and that it paralleled water lines that had been replaced, and we could get rid of those first. And that suggestion was made by Halifax. Again, I think it's a situation where, although it's not yet formalized in this mutual agreement, we have been working together, and we are working together to have this move forward. A third meeting was held, and that was with the COG, with Turner Murphy, our contractor, with everybody was there. And that involved the water sewer project, which I stated was due to be completed on or before the February due date. Okay. Things are going well, and obviously the county is pleased that we are at this point. We've come up with a set of goals. We know what we did, but that's not enough. We can't stop. And where do we go from here? And I'm sure that's of concern to you. Do we just walk out that door? No. We come up with a set of goals. Goal number one, and she's sitting at this table, is to immediately begin work on the following audit. And Ms. Stroud has been aggressive and has come and already gathered information. And the quality of the full-time finance officer that we're looking to take on board is someone that I think will be an asset, as will Ellen, who is now functioning in finance for us. And I think it will help her move quickly, more quickly certainly than we have in the past.
Mayor Hogan, if I may interrupt you briefly, I think that you have buried the lead on your best news, which you have not actually said to the room, which is this weekend you...
I almost can't say the words. The audit was submitted, and waiting that long to exhale was tough, let me tell you. And again, I think you prompted me, I know, and the others. We thought we were being aggressive and we were being careful, and we were being too careful. we needed to push our aggressiveness. But I know you have experience and thank goodness it's here. Thank goodness we're able to move on with our goals. Ms. Stroud, do you want to issue a vote of confidence? We're overconfident today, but.
I have talked with two potential auditors that may take on the town. I've discussed with them before the meeting that the price will be nowhere what they were paying for 21 audit. So I have two that potentially could take it on if we can immediately turn around and go ahead, because they're going to get busy come fall and they're not going to put current clients aside for us. So hopefully we can turn around 22 this summer, at least have that one done, and then we'll have 23 maybe by end of the year or first of next year. My understanding is from Mr. Pittman, prior CPA, that he had done a lot of the closeout work for 22. I spoke with him yesterday and his staff sent me a bunch of those work papers this morning. So, and then I went in yesterday and went ahead and did some of the things that I could do, like accrue the sales tax, accrued payroll, things like that. So we're already making headway on 22. So I feel like we'll get that one turned around fairly quick as soon as we can get an auditor on the hook.
Ms. Stroud was a wonderful resource, and being there at the gate, we're just waiting for it to arrive on your computers. We were waiting. And so not only are we beginning immediately, we have begun. We have begun, and we've made provisions to move forward differently with our full-time finance officer who has experience audit preparation coming from a municipal setting. We just feel just a little more confident. Completing the audit at this point is a concern of ours because we are working with a limited budget, with a town of 650 people. And we're a tier 1 county, so we don't have a lot of money. It's impressive to hear you all talking billions and millions. We don't have that luxury, but we do a lot with what we have. I am, again, grateful for the opportunity that you have given us. The 30 days, you have to know we made use of every single day of it. And don't know now if you have any questions you want to ask us.
Thank you so much for your work the past month. I know that you've been in a as we've seen with other units, it can be overwhelming to be that far behind.
A little bit.
And we are very happy that you've brought Beverly Stroud on to work with you. Appreciate your efforts over the past month. And I'll see if any of the commission members have any questions.
Well, and I need to know that I personally was impressed, with the fact that we were called to task, but I was more impressed that you didn't just throw us out the door. Right, Kendra? I mean, you were able to field phone calls. That obviously we needed that help, and that you made it a comfortable situation where we thought we were on the right track. We needed help, and we would call and you'd say yes or no. Yes, go this way. No, that's probably not what you want to do. And that was, and we are greatly appreciative of that. So thank you. I know she is as glad. A smile on Kendra's face when that audit appeared. It is a problem. Tax season, it's a terrible problem. It limits the ability of the auditors and bookkeepers to work for 6 months. And then you have a 6-month delay. Then you come back to 6 months. That's a difficult work schedule.
There's a real challenge we know across the state with, we've talked about it, of course, the number of auditors, the availability of auditors, but I'm glad you're moving forward with a contract on the next one. I think I would probably have recommended to the commission that we ask Littleton to come back in about 4 months, something like that. But when we look at your calendar for the year, you will be back here, I think, in about 4 months-ish anyway, when we get to sales tax appeals or sales tax withholding appeals for late audits. So I would ask that when we schedule you for that meeting, you come in person, let's talk about the sales tax, and then let's get an update on your progress at that time.
Thank
And in the meantime, you know where to reach us and you know where to reach Kendra's amazing team. So call us if we can help So
You
thank
just answered my question. The resources of the state treasurer's office are still available. Thank you.
Yep, of course. All
Thank you.
right, thanks so much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And when you're driving through, stop off in Little.
City of Rocky Mount, do you want to bring your team on up? Rocky Mount, thanks so much for coming back to join us today. Before we jump into this next item on the agenda, members, we did receive 2 public comments through the public comment portal, and Cindy's going to read those out to you, and then we can ask the city staff to reintroduce themselves to us.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Norm, sometimes we would include these in your packets, but they came in, 1, late, but 2, they're very short. 3, you're bombarded with enough paperwork. So I said, well, I'll just read them. And I'll preface it with the same remarks we would put on the written one. Sometimes the comments are not relevant to what your decisions are, be it debt approvals or something else like this. Sometimes the person might refer to issues that are not under the overview powers or authority or of the LGC. So with that in mind, the first 2 comments, they're both short. The first one was a gentleman by the name of Eric Wordsworth. We received this on April 25th in the morning. Why is the city of Rocky Mount violating North Carolina law on public records requests? I know personally from submitting one and 4 others who have submitted ones who have waited 2+ months with no answer. That's one of the issues that the LGC is not oversight, has oversight on. Likewise, please investigate grants in Rocky Mount going back 5 years, and please take over. Thanks. Okay, that was submission number 1. Comment number 2, we received on, that would have been Saturday, May 2nd. This, I will not worry about typos, I'll just read what's supposed to be. This is a person named, apologize if I mispronounced the name, Danilo DeRico. The city continues to raise the rates even after the 15% increase. We've received an additional 10% increase in our public water utilities usage as well. We're having problems with our garbage pickup as well as our big item pickups and tree limbs and leaves pickup. That was these 2 comments that we received.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks so much. And city staff, you don't necessarily need to address those unless the commission members have any questions. But why don't you reintroduce yourselves and update us on where you've been?
Okay, I'll start, but I would like to also note that while the mayor is here, we do have our mayor pro temp in the audience as well as another council member, Councilmember Charles Robertson. They decided to join us as well.
Great.
But again, for you all, my name is Elton Daniels. I am the city manager of Rocky Mount. April made 1 year in the city manager's role. I have my finance director with me.
Yeah, Cheryl Spivey, finance director.
And I'm Sandy Robertson, mayor.
Thanks for coming back.
So a brief overview. We have some good news too. I was a little upset when I saw the agenda and noticed that Rocky Mount was far down on the list. But I do think that it was actually a benefit for us to be able to hear some of the other things that's going on and gave us some ideas of some other things that we could implement in the city of Rocky Mount and possibly talk to the LGC staff about. But we were able to close out the month of April and reconcile our accounts. And our summer months projections are about $1.7 million to the good. So we're going in the right direction. Council did vote to increase rates across the board for our utilities. We are starting to realize those impacts. We were able to work with the LGC staff over the last several weeks in negotiating one of the items that you had on the agenda with the DEQ, which is going to help us with our cash flow. We won't have to make those payments until I think 2 years from now. We were also able to get on a call with other financial advisors along with the LGC staff with regard to renegotiating the debt associated with our event center. We put out an RFP We received responses from 2 organizations, Capital One and PNC. After reviewing those, we decided that we were not going to take that option at this point in time because in short, what it would do, it would increase the amount of years on the loan. Right now, we have about 10 more years left. It would increase, both options would increase the loan about 5 additional years with an additional $5 to $6 million cost on top of that. So in our current situation, we didn't feel like that was the best option, but we will continue to explore our options. We were able to submit our audit to our auditors, so we're happy about that. They anticipate submitting that final document back to us as well as to the LGC for the official submission the week of May 18th. So we'll be up to date on that. And then with regard to all of our other accounts, we are reconciled, we are up to date, we have made all of our debt payments to date, and we don't anticipate missing any debt payments, including the retirement stuff that we just heard about from the other municipalities. So our main issue is still cash flow. We still have to monitor our accounts. I will be presenting our fiscal year 27 budget on Monday night, in which I can tell you all at this point, the department heads across the city did a good job. Everything that they requested was below the currently amended budget that we have for the current fiscal year. And then I was able to take a little bit off of those. And so when you compare last fiscal year's amended budget to where I'm anticipating we will be for fiscal year 27, we should realize about $16 million in annual savings across the board. So I'm really excited where we are. We are not out of the woods, but if you have specific questions about numbers or anything else, staff will try to address those as long as the mayor.
Thank you so much. Commission members? Any questions for the city? I have a few questions, but I'll let you go first if you do.
Just one quick
Treasurer Bryan.
question. I was alluded to the third-party grants. Which fund did those come out of historically? So if I look at the budget numbers.
They were wastewater grants, right?
No, I think he's talking about the comment, talking about like the economic development.
Oh, okay, that's in the general fund.
Okay, so the Economic Development Fund, that's not where they would have come from.
No, those are paid out of the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say in my upcoming recommended budget to council, we are eliminating those grants outside of the major ones that I talked about previously.
Thank you.
Denise, you may ask, I'm just curious, and I know it was noted in the summary, the transit fund, it seems like you're doing work around that. What constitutes that? I saw that's your only red line.
Yeah, so what it is right now we're at I think it's about a $3 million deficit within the transit fund. Part of that is due to the administration of grants that we received from the federal and state level. This previous staff did not draw down the funds in a timely manner. And so, and there were many instances in where the city actually applied for a grant that was a little bit larger for us to handle with regard to the match that was associated with that. And so as of about 2 months ago, we hired a new transit manager, and we actually moved in a different direction with the person who is responsible for the grant administration as well. So we haven't hired anyone for that position yet, but we do anticipate doing that within the coming months. So it's really just a lag of pulling down from the federal level. And then we also have to look at adjusting our rates as well.
Okay.
I would add in the future, which is going to be in my budget message to the council, we're going to have to look at the transit specifically because we may have to adjust the routes in the future. But in the short time, being that we have federal funds tied to that, we couldn't make a decision within the last couple of weeks. But that's something that we're going to evaluate moving forward. We may have to adjust what we offer to the public.
All right. Thank you.
I know that in your budget message last year, you focused on shoring up the general fund and the need to not appropriate any fund balance out of the general fund. But then as we've talked about before, with the revenue being estimated overly high, you did end up using general fund balance. So tell us a little bit about, and you have Cheryl on board now, so tell us a little bit about your revenue estimates and efforts you're taking to make sure that they are accurate.
Well, I'll speak to the portion that I'm responsible for, and then I'll let Cheryl go on to, she's the technical person providing the projections. You are correct in that the the projections were, I guess, overestimated in the previous years. We have since moved in a different direction with regard to the budget person responsible for that. As of just 2 weeks ago, we hired a chief budget and strategy officer who is currently certified as a local government budget professional, as well as certified as a finance professional who also has a CPA. So this is the first time in quite some time that the city has had 2 CPAs on board. Between Cheryl and the new employee's name is Kimberly Leonard. They will be responsible for providing those projections. And then, obviously I would be reviewing those as well. And in developing this year's budget, it'll be in my budget message, but everything is very, very conservative on the revenue side. Even from the collection rate on the taxes, I think we're using anywhere from 95 to 96% and hoping that we come in a little bit better than that.
Yes, so I specifically have been working, on the revenue projections and as with the cash flow projections, I've been very conservative in that for expenditures that would be, that's showing them probably a little higher than I expect they're going to be, but for revenues, lower. And specifically for this year, we've used the audited 2025 numbers, that we recently received, and for the most part, unless we've made rate changes on some of those revenues, we're using those numbers. So we have not increased them at all with the thinking that will produce us fund balance as the year progresses.
One thing that I will add, I think the last time I was here, I stated what the value of a penny is. Based on the new calculation, the value of a penny is a little bit less because we're trying to be conservative in our approach. So, and also in the method that we present the information. In years past, the city has showed like the operating budget, and then we have other fund accounts. I'm combining everything to give full transparency to the council, outlining which each fund is, but having the full picture. So not only are we providing more information and more transparency, we're providing a different way and trying to make it easier. Even in our monthly reports, I've worked with LGC staff, as well as you directly on some ways that we can enhance how we present the information to council so they can have a better understanding and be able to make better decisions. So it's new to the city because they're used to looking at it one way, but I'm hopeful that the way that we're presenting the information now and using the actual numbers as opposed to just projections and making sure that our revenue projections are conservative, I think it'll put us on better financial footing.
Just so that I can understand, this is Nancy Hoffman. Are you saying that you're budgeting all of these funds down in your 27 budget?
I couldn't hear. What was the question again?
Are you saying that you're budgeting your revenue down in all of these various funds in your projected 27 budget? In your gas fund, your water fund, all of those? Did I understand that you said you're budgeting revenue down?
Our starting point is the 20 or the 25 actual.
It's the 25. So you're going back to 25 numbers?
With the so going back to the 25 numbers, but then for the areas that we have already increased rates on, the 14% across board for electric, water and sewer, and stormwater, that 14% has been applied to the 25 numbers. So that we're not overstating the estimated amounts. So we're not trying to use 26 numbers that have had an increase, another increase on them. We're using 25 numbers plus the rate increase that has already.
Plus the rate increase?
Yes.
And then when I stated across the board going down, I was referring to the revised budget that we just adopted just a couple of months ago when my when I reached out to my department staff and asked them to submit their budget request for fiscal year 27, I asked that they come in even lower than the current amended budget for the current fiscal year. And they did so. And when I received those numbers, working with the finance team and management staff, we also chiseled a little bit away from those numbers to have a budget that we'll be presenting in the next couple of days. That's approximately $16 million lower than the current amended budget.
I appreciate that you've gone back to the fiscal 25 actuals, especially on the revenue side, because we talked about before. One thing that stood out to me about your budget was the revenue actuals would come in under budget, and the budget would get increased the next year anyway, several years in a row. So it sounds like you've right-sized that, and I appreciate your work. Commission members, you know that we asked the city to submit various materials over the past month. I wanted to let you know that they did submit the materials that you asked them to submit. And you also asked them to return in June. So unless any desired changes for that, it sounds like we'll keep working closely with the City of Rocky Mount staff. Anytime you need us, feel free to reach out to any of our staff, and then we'll see you back here in June.
Can I-
So, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yes, Mr. Dole.
So y'all have been in crisis management for a while. And I know forecasting is notoriously difficult, but when do you forecast you'll be moving out of crisis management?
That's a good question. I think based on the current levels of our cash flow and our fund balance, we're going to monitor it as if we're in crisis mode for quite some time until we feel good about our fund balances across the board.
Days, months, weeks, years? Ballpark.
Months, definitely. We have to see what finally gets adopted. From my position, I recommend a budget. I turn it over to council. They decide on what they vote on. Once we get to that point and we know what the adopted budget will be, I'll be able to have a better answer. I do feel like from a financial standpoint, it'll be years before we can build back the amount of fund balance that we previously had, because I think we were north of $80 million. So we can't do that over the course of one or two fiscal years. But I think that the path that we are on, we will be out of crisis mode within the next, I would say, 24 months, even sooner, depending on, the next couple of months.
One hopes, right? So y'all have had to do make some difficult decisions, reducing staff, services, that sort of thing. I think I have in my head 16% RIF. Is that too high?
No, it was, it's funny you should say that, because the initial RIF was about 10% of our staff. Back last year, this time, we had approximately 920 employees. Today, we have about 760. So total, when you combine the 10% RIF and the resignations that we've had over the last couple of months, we're at about 16 to 17% down. And I do think that's going to be our new norm moving forward. In my recommended budget, I will be restructuring or recommending to restructure the organization, where we'll be combining roles starting from the manager's office on down that will have other cost savings associated with it. So I imagine for the next several years that 760 plus or minus 2 to 3% will be our new norm.
So that raises the question, have you had to cut services that are necessary in order to meet this new normal?
Our goal was not to cut any of our core services. So council decides what they deem as necessary. We have the departments that are required by law, such as the building and inspections. So we have not had to stop any of the services. We've had to reduce some of the timing on certain things, not police and fire, but even like trash pickup or something like that. We may go to where we're not picking up every week, where we pick up every other week. But for the most part, we have not had to do that yet. We've been able to maintain the same level of service across the board, every department. Now, that does mean that the employees that we have are working longer hours and working more, but we just feel like this is something we have to do before we start adding back. But to answer your question in short, all of our core services remain intact.
Mr. Mayor, I know you're walking around the streets. What are you hearing?
What I'll say is that we have had to change scheduling for sure. But I have not heard anybody really, really scream and say, look, services are awful. because you've gone through this. In fact, I'm seeing a little bit more efficiency. My experience personally in my own businesses is that the fewer people you have, the more effective they are, the more efficient they are, the happier they tend to be. And I think we've gone through that process, and it's really more of a morale issue. I think Elton has done a great job of maintaining that. I think that our services have maintained very well. And I'm proud to walk around the streets of Rocky Mount. I've not been hiding.
No place to hide, Rocky Mount. I'm
Very
sure.
difficult.
So of the remaining staff, did they have to take pay cuts as well? And were you one of those people if you did?
My goal is to try to maintain the salaries where they are across the board. All staff, including myself, did end up losing the city's contribution to 401k. That's about $1.3 million a year in savings, as well as some employees had their longevity program change. But as far as actual salaries themselves, they have not been cut. Positions, we're trying to take big cuts. I think what Denise said at our budget retreats that we couldn't chisel, we had to have bulldozers. So as opposed to going at individuals reducing their salaries, we try to find the jobs that we could possibly do without and then give other people responsibility, but keeping them at the same level. And in my upcoming budget, I'm not recommending any salary increases across the board. They will remain flat.
And I just want to point out that, look, we had a particular significant increase in the number of FTEs that we had hired over a period of 2 to 3 years that got us in part to this problem. So when we talk about reductions, we're really talking about normalizing back to a previous level that was pretty consistent within the city's operations. And so, there has been a reduction, but really we've kind of just gotten back to where we should have been starting. And I think that's important to note in the context of all of it.
My goal, if we can get on better financial footing, would be to reinstate our merit program. Right now, the city employees, they get evaluated on an annual basis, and if they perform well, they get a merit increase. Well, we have suspended that program starting back in the fall. And so, while we have a dedicated staff here and we've reduced our numbers, I don't want to go too many years without re-implementing that program, as well as some type of form of longevity, because you have to reward employees and because the inflationary costs around us continues to go up. So even if we remain static, if prices outside go up, in essence, we are losing money.
Yeah, and if your forecasts are right, Ms. Spivey, it looks like the light you're seeing is not the train, but the end of the tunnel is encouraging. And that's, but part of leadership is reminding folks, sit tight, we're almost there, but we're not quite there. Calmness at the helm is important. Thank you very much for your time, patience, and do come back. We're eager to talk to you later.
One of the topics we talked about last time, maybe to accelerate getting into the end of the tunnel, was the disposition of surplus assets. Do you have updates for us on that? And if not now, when we have those updates for us?
I'm not sure what we can say publicly. I do know that one of the topics was the vacant land that we had. I do know that we have several opportunities to either liquidate the property completely or heavily develop it. And council will be discussing that over the next couple of weeks.
So hopefully by June, we'll have some kind of resolution or some movement on those topics.
June or July.
Thank you.
Commissioners? I'm sorry, Auditor Bullock.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, Dave Bullock here. Thanks for coming. Wanted to ask you specifically about the engagement of council, and I know that there are some council members there. In the past, there had been, it appeared, and from our audit completed by our office, there was oftentimes a lot of discourse and a lot of differing opinions on council. Would like to get a sort of an update on where council is and where you see the political governance and the governance structure working with your city manager on helping to move the city forward in the long term.
I'll answer that with this. I know that there's a move, certainly amongst the majority of council, of my experience here in conversation and in others, to try to accelerate reductions, to try to accelerate getting back to a place where we needed to be. Whether or not those initiatives meet fertile ground, in other words, can they be implemented in the timetables that we want? I don't know. That's something that we need to sit down with our professional management team and Elton and Cheryl and others and try to map out the course. I think the proof of the pudding, I think that the experience will be once we get through this budget process. If we can deliver to the LGC, to our citizens and to ourselves, a budget that is something that is functional, that delivers a product, services that we need to our customer base, which are our citizens, in a consistent manner, without deviating from that course and building back fund balance, we will have won. We will know that. We'll know that very soon, certainly within this budget process, and hopefully we get that passed sooner than later. I do expect a robust and vigorous conversation around each and all of those items. And I expect that we may even have to spend some night burning the midnight oil. But I see a political will to get us to a place of restoring our budget, our surpluses, and I'm excited by that. I don't think it's going to be an easy process. I think it's going to be very deliberate. But again, I hate to forecast what I believe is going to happen until I've had some sense of it, some taste of it. I've been burnt too many times making predictions, but I know that we will know by the first quarter after we've adopted a budget. And just as important as adopting the budget, how often do we change that midstream? You know, I've sat through now 5 or 6 budget sessions. We pass a budget, and the very next Monday we've altered that in some form or fashion. Not saying that's inappropriate. It needs to be a living document. But there's not been a cognizant awareness or deliberation on what impact that has to the total picture as we move forward. And I think I'm seeing something very different now, and I'm excited by that. Now, having y'all to help us reframe that on a consistent basis has probably been very helpful in that process.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Reach out when you need us, and otherwise we'll see you back here in June.
Thank you.
The Town of Speed. Joe Durham from the League of Municipalities. Commissioners, we've talked for the past few months about the fact that the towns that most need to dissolve in North Carolina are least able to get the logistics of the work done. And as you know, that Joe from the League of Municipalities has been working very closely with the folks in the Town of Speed. I appreciate very much your work. I think I've talked to each of you individually, but the question that you're being asked is to vote on is not an approval of whether the town should dissolve. That's up for the town to decide. But you're being asked to vote on the town's plan for how it will dispose of its assets and liabilities, if any. No liabilities in the plan, but as you saw in the documents, the town intends to allocate most of its, or to convey most of its assets to Edgecombe County, and then 2 parcels of land to the volunteer fire department. I won't take any more of Joe's thunder, but if you can just summarize that a little bit more, and the resolution from last night and the letter from the.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to all members. Joe Durham, the League of Municipalities. I'm going to provide a brief summary of the dissolution plan. You have copies of that in your agenda packet. Denise has done a great job of summarizing some of the important points there. Just a little bit of history here. Speed has a population, as I've indicated previously, of 63 people. There are about 34 households. It had its largest population back in 1960. That was 142 people. It is all residential development at this stage. There is no commercial property at all located within the city limits. As all of you know, Speed has had significant financial challenges. The LGC staff has documented that along with the state auditor. There are now 5 outstanding audits and again, lots of financial deficiencies. So the town is going through a voluntary dissolution process that is consistent with NCGS 168-130, Article 32. Again, the town has initiated this process. Just as a summary of some of the things that have occurred, there was the town adopted a resolution of intent to dissolve that was held back in October of 2025. There was the impact statement that was released back on December 15 of 2025. The impact statement provides a summary of what happens in the town loses its services and funds that are associated with it. There have been 2 public hearings held, which are associated with the impact statement. We've also presented a draft of the dissolution plan. We've had significant turnout for the 2 public hearings and 1 community meeting that was held. We have a public hearing held on the dissolution plan or scheduled for May 12th. And as Denise has indicated before, Ms. Canada, we're hope, I hate to use the word hope. We are planning on having that meeting on the 12th, and which is a public hearing, and then recessing that to the 15th and having the board actually vote on the dissolution plan. The effective date will be June 30th. The town does have real property and personal property. They have real properties. There are 7 properties. Most of those are vacant. There are 1 property that has 2 buildings which are dilapidated. One was the former town hall. There is also another property which houses the current town hall, which was the old Ruritan building. And there's also a vacant lot which is adjacent to the Speed Volunteer Fire Department. 2 of those properties will be provided to the Volunteer Fire Department. One is the one that's adjacent to the Volunteer Fire Department. Also, the Volunteer Fire Department will assume ownership of the town hall. They will use that for further training and any activities that they choose to pursue in the future. One of the big or larger items associated with this dissolution is Edgecombe County's willingness to accept the assets for the town. And also the town wants to transfer ownership of those 2 properties that are outlined to the town, to the Speed Volunteer Fire Department. There is a letter, I think, that was sent out to you from the Volunteer Fire Department indicating its willingness to accept the property. The Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners met last night and unanimously approved a resolution to receive the assets from the town. They also noted, as we've had many conversations before, and as Denise has indicated, there are no liabilities. There's no outstanding debt or anything like that. So Edgecombe County will not assume any of that. One of the things that we talked about, and the county has agreed to this, is to have some type of interlocal agreement, a transfer document that will hopefully will occur sometime latter part of this month or early June. And one of the things that's important, and it came up at some of the meetings, is that the town wanted to, of course, their assets that we estimate, we've got real property, we've got personal property, probably around $42,000 right now. We won't know that until later on. So those assets will be transferred over to Edgecombe County. Edgecombe County has said, we will use those funds, the whatever cash that we have, in support of activities for the town of Speed. So there will be a Speed committee, so to speak, that will be providing advice to the county commissioners and the county manager regarding how those funds are expended. After the effective date is June 30th of this year. So after June 30th, there still will be receivables coming in. They'll still get sales tax. There'll still be property tax coming in. We have started a process with Powell bill money that will stop on June 30th. But again, those properties, those sales tax distributions and others will continue to come in. So we'll be working with the town, with Edgecombe County in terms of making sure those funds are received. Again, the town has no outstanding debt. There are no contractual obligations. It does not provide any water or sewer, or no enterprise funds are provided at all. After June 30th, the town will not have those 4 services that they were providing previously. The first one there is land development regulations. County's already working on that, so they will assume zoning, they had building inspections prior, but will assume the zoning subdivision standards effective July 1 of 2026. Street maintenance will be done by NCDOT. Street lights will be paid for by the individual property owners, but probably during this interim time period, we'll use the proceeds from the cash assets to pay for some of that for a while as we try to figure out what to do with the street lights. And that's probably one of the more important services that the residents of the town want to continue. Household garbage collection will be done by the individual property owners. They'll be able to access the county's convenience centers. So we're moving on with the public hearing, which is set for next week. And after that, the town will be considering adoption of the dissolution plan. And again, that will be June 30th of 2026. Glad to respond to any questions at this time.
Thanks so much, Joe. Commission members?
I just want to say thank you. This is a tremendous amount of work. This is a really important thing we're doing. I commend the people of Speed for going through it, but mostly you for leading us through it.
Well, thank you. And thanks to the LGC staff and Denise and her staff for working too.
Sure, Mr. Joel.
Mr. Durham, I echo Treasurer Briner. I mean, there's a lot of cats to kind of move around. You're doing a good job, so thank you for that. How would you characterize the mood of the people of Speed now?
I think concern, but I think some of that concern is lesser than it was. I think there was a lot of unknown. We had those public meetings, had people attending meetings. Some of those were out of state who own property there. And I think just not knowing what was going to happen, who's going to pick up my trash, what happens to the streetlights. Those were concerns that have surfaced from the beginning, and I think some of those are still there. But again, I think everyone does realize that this is the best thing for the town moving forward. So, but I think there is a greater understanding that this has to occur.
How would you characterize the mood of Edgecombe County?
Edgecombe County has been very receptive, willing to work with us from the beginning. I have a good working relationship with the county manager there. The Board of Commissioners, I haven't talked with any of them, but again, they had a unanimous vote last night. So I think everyone's willing to work together on this.
Is it a matter of duty or obligation, or they see an opportunity, or is this just what you have to do?
I think it's realizing this is something that they have to do and something you're helping out this is Edgecombe County, helping out another municipality in Edgecombe County, one that has had difficulty over the last probably 20 years or so. And so here's an opportunity to continue to provide assistance and providing help for that unit going forward. So this is an opportunity for that.
And then just because this is a curious question, but after June 30th, there's presumably no town of Speed. So who's going to be in charge of making sure Edgecombe County spends the $43,000 in a way that it's a lawyer question. I just had to ask.
Well, that has come up. That has been some concern raised by a few citizens about Edgecombe County. And I think that's reasonable to assume that. But again, there will be a committee in place consisting of residents from the town of Speed. And they will provide counsel and advice to Edgecombe County regarding the expenditure of those funds. So they will know how many, what the amount is, and then make recommendations as to what those expenditures are going forward. And again, that's the general statutes don't allow. I mean, it doesn't call for that. But again,
practical.
But it's again, I think a great thing on behalf of the county to be able to allow that to happen. And that was a suggestion made by the county manager, not by me.
Thank you again for your work. Appreciate it.
Will there be any cost to the transfer to Edgecombe County that will be borne by Speed at this point?
No, just normal costs associated with their paying their attorney to develop the documents, both on the Edgecombe side as well as the Town of Speed side. Those are the only funds.
Make a motion that we approve the plan of dissolution for Town of Speed.
Thanks so much. May I? Friendly amendment to your motion. As we've done with a few resolutions recently, it might be helpful if you would allow staff to make some technical and cleanup changes in the plan of action that is still marked draft in your packet. No substantive changes, but get it into an official final format.
Make it subject to approval by staff.
Does that work, Cindy? Thank you.
Sorry, I can't hear my head nodding.
No, sure. Second, Mr. Poole, thank you so much. Unless any other discussion, Cindy, would you call the roll?
Is there a second? I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, Tool, okay. All right, the plan of dissolution to, how to dispose of the assets and liabilities of the Town of Speed, subject to minor drafting, corrections, edits, cleanups on the draft. Hughes and Tool. So that will take me to Auditor Bolick.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Wooten?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Hoffman?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Stith?
Aye.
And Treasurer Briner?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Commission members, one more quick update for you. You may remember from last year, those of you that were on the commission, that as of March 31st, we begin the process of considering units for sales tax withholding if the audit is not completed. So I've asked Laura to give you a quick update about how many units we're talking about. Is it less than last year? Please say yes. And where we go from here.
Sure. Good afternoon, commission members. Laura Rowe, LGC staff. Yes, the number of notices for failure to submit the 25 audit is less. We're looking at 116 versus 118 last year. Otherwise, the numbers are really similarly spread as to the status of those units. We have 77 of those that have 1 year. And so I would anticipate almost half of those probably being filed. Instead of filing an appeal, that they'll just get the audit in. The rest, 39, are missing 2 or more. And then that's where the other good cause appeals would be filed. It's those appeals that are of the substantive nature that would be heard at the September meeting. That's what we're looking at doing this year, is hearing those appeals in September. And then in August, doing the successful appeals for those units that were only missing 1, yet they're not getting the audit in. So those would be handled and kind of splitting that package up that way. So yes, those are the numbers that we're looking at. The notices went out last week. And then on Monday, a courtesy email was sent to all the governing boards for whom we had email addresses, so that they got an electronic copy as well, and were hopefully at least put on notice that way of where they're sitting right now.
Thanks so much. And commission members, for those of you that weren't here last year, we will walk you through this in more detail, significant detail when it comes to the time. I just wanted to give you an initial look at what you can expect coming toward you later this summer and into early fall. Thanks, Laura. Any questions? Hearing none. The next meeting of the LGC will be June 9th at 1:30. Make sure you have that on. I want to make sure you have that on your calendars, because that meeting did need to be rescheduled to the 9th due to the Council of State traveling out of town on the original meeting date. Are there any other comments, or is there any other business before the commission? If not, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Stith, Commissioner Johnson, we usually do this by voice vote. Cindy is out of the room, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Nice work. Thank you.